really nice, satisfying crunch, which you're also gonna get from your wheat nachos. Ahoy hoy friends, and welcome to Keystone Cooking, where we focus on recipes that mostly follow our 3 keystone values of being cheap, healthy, and delicious. Are you afraid that eating healthy also means you need to eat boring tasting food or use really expensive ingredients? I used to think so too, but today I'm going to show you a mouth-watering tortilla chip recipe. It's going to blow your mind. It's going to take care of your taste buds and your waistline without breaking your bank account. Let's begin. Alright, so let's dive into this. The first choice you're going to need to make is if you want to use the small corn flour tortillas or the small wheat flour tortillas. My go-to is the corn flour for tortilla chips. Why? Because you're gonna get a nice, thick, crunchy tortilla chip with this, unlike the ones in the bags that break when you're trying to dip perhaps too much salsa off at once. They're also not very great for wrapping up tacos. I find that these wheat flour ones make amazing tacos because you can roll them up, whereas these corn ones just tend to break on me when I'm making tacos. If anyone knows how to fix that, let me know in the comments below, because maybe I'm just really bad at rolling up corn flour tortillas. But in exchange for not being able to roll these, they make great nachos. They've got 8 times as much fiber as their flour counterparts. To be fair, that's comparing 1/4 gram of fiber to 2 grams of fiber, which isn't a ton, but it's still 8% of your recommended daily value. I'll take that. It's also got a few fewer calories overall and no sodium compared to 11% of your daily sodium per 2 shells, which is going to give us about 18 chips. So, 12 chips. So I go with the corn flour ones, but I'll cook up a couple of the wheat flour ones just so you can see the difference afterwards too. Next, all you need is a little spray bottle. This has got olive oil and lemon juice in it, or lime juice. I don't really remember which. Either of those citruses is going to add some nice acidity to your nachos, and the spray bottle ensures that we're not going to get too many calories from our olive oil or avocado oil. It's nice to have the extra oil. It's going to give you a nice browning and it's going to add some flavor to your nachos, but you don't need to drown them in oil because otherwise you're no longer going to be friendly on your waistline. And then after that, the toppings are entirely up to you. Use whatever it is you feel like and whatever you've got laying around the kitchen. For me, I'm a go-to fan of the kosher salt. I think that goes amazingly on anything. Nachos, big pretzels. I use it to season my pasta water. I just love the big flakes of the kosher salt, but if you want to go with just a nice ground salt instead, go for it. If you want to put on a little bit of black pepper, go for it. If you want to just put on some garlic powder and onion powder, go for it. If you want to just put on some extra heat with some ground cayenne pepper, some ground chili powder, or some ground chipotle powder, go for it. Use as much or as little as you want. And if you want a nice earthy flavor, go ahead and add some ground cumin too. If you've got other things in your kitchen, other flavors you enjoy in your tortilla chips, add those as well. And if you know what you're going to be using the chips for, season accordingly. If you're just planning to eat them plain out of the bag, put on something I'd recommend like a chili powder, something that's going to give it a nice lasting deep flavor. If you're just going to be putting them underneath nachos, I found that skipping a lot of the other seasonings was helpful because it was just too many flavors competing at the same time. Next up, we just want to spread our chips onto our baking tray. And we want to try and tuck them in as closely as possible because I like to do as few batches as possible in the oven, but you don't want them to overlap at all. Next, we're going to take our bottle with our oil and our acid, and we're just going to give it a quick mix because those two won't stay together. And then we're just going to spritz across the tops. And then sprinkle over the top your seasoning of choice. In my case, I'm just using a little bit of kosher salt. And let them bake at 350 degrees for 8 minutes. When we hit the end of our first 8 minutes, we're just going to take them out and flip them on over. We'll go ahead and spread them back out so that they're not overlapping, and then we'll give them another coat of olive oil with the lime juice and a little bit more salt on this side. And then back in the oven they go for another 8 minutes. And at the end of our second 8 minutes, we should have something along these lines. You can see they're getting nice and crispy and getting some nice rounds on them. And they're not going to be perfectly crispy yet. That's okay. They're going to continue to harden as they dry out and cool down. And here we have our finished tortilla chips. All right, and now that we've got a delicious looking plate of tortilla chips, it's important that we pair it with a mindful side, because it's easy to just cover it up in cheese dip like this, but 2 tablespoons of this cheese dip has about as many calories as 18 tablespoons of this salsa. Now, that means that about 1/10 of this jar has the same number of calories as this entire jar. Now, that's not to say that this jar is your perfect way to go. This jar also comes with 150% of your daily sodium intake, which is quite a bit. So maybe a homemade salsa would be an even healthier route to go down if you've got a little bit of time and a couple of fresh tomatoes. You can also turn these chips into some great loaded nachos. Start off by adding some protein to them so you stay fuller longer. Maybe a nice lean chicken breast. Maybe you want to use some lean ground beef or some pulled pork. Maybe you want to saute some tofu and put that on top. Sauteed tofu can be really delicious if you do it right. Then go ahead and add some more veggies on top of that. Maybe some more fiber and some protein in the form of green beans, black beans, red beans. Maybe you want to add some cilantro for a nice fresh taste, or some green onion on top. I love layering those flavors and adding that freshness at the very end. And heck, maybe you've got the cheese sauce on the side for a couple of chips that you want to dunk in there anyways. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the difference between the corn flour tortilla and the wheat flour tortilla. You can see that the wheat flour is definitely a thicker tortilla, but it's almost too thick in my opinion for a lot of dipping purposes, whereas the corn flour tortilla's got enough thickness that it's not going to break under a reasonable amount of topping strain or nachos being piled on top, and it's still going to give you a really nice satisfying crunch. Got crumbs all over the place, which you're also going to get from your wheat nachos. Let me know your favorite way to use tortilla chips in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe over there and like this video. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming ones, and check our description down below for links to our Instagram and Facebook group. They're both at Keystone Cooking. And that does it for this episode. Congratulations on taking steps towards a happier and healthier future, and we'll see you in the next episode.